Good afternoon and welcome to an EAS webinar on FSVP, FDA's #1 FSMA citation, presented by EAS independent consultant Carlos Ortiz. EAS is a member of the certified group of companies and is a leader in regulatory solutions for industries regulated by FDA. Our global network of over 150 independent advisors and consultants enables EAS to provide comprehensive consulting, training, and auditing services, ensuring proactive regulatory compliance, and our alliance with the certified group and FSNS offers testing solutions to fit your organization's sophisticated testing needs. Today's presenter is Carlos Ortiz. Mr. Ortiz is a veteran FDA professional with over 20 years of agency experience, as well as a veteran of the U.S. Air Force and Army. He served as Regional Activities Manager of FDA's Division of Import Operations for approximately 10 years. In that role, he was responsible for reporting on the FDA's Import Operations Program and provided guidance to field investigators in the Southeast Imports Division. He also served as a member of the Foreign Food Cadre and performed various GMP and HACCP inspections in Japan, China, Mexico, Germany, Ecuador, and India. Mr. Ortiz began his FDA career in 2002 as a field investigator in the Atlanta District, specializing in imports and food inspections. In 2008, he transferred to the Center for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition as a compliance officer. And today he assists EAS clients with a number of FSMA and FSVP related issues, utilizing his wealth of FDA experience. As a reminder, should you have any questions today, you may ask them by typing them into the questions box, and we will save all questions for the end of the presentation. With that, I will say thank you again for joining us, and I'll turn the presentation over to Carlos.
Thank you for that introduction. Hope everyone's having a good day. So far, good morning and good afternoon, depending on your time zone. So today we'll talk about the FSVP, and we'll have a short overview over the FSMA FSVP and the countdown of the violations, which is the main topic of today, regulatory action and FDA policy during COVID-19. Excuse me. So for FSVP overview, the U.S. food import requirements have changed with the enactment of FDA's Food Safety Modernization Act, known as FSMA. Importers must verify that suppliers are manufacturing food or growing produce in a manner that provides the same level of food safety standards as the United States. Importers that do not verify the food safety practices of the foreign suppliers are subject to regulatory action. And I think a lot of people are aware of warning letters and or the dreaded DWPE, detention without physical examination, from when they're imported into the US. The scope of today's FSVP overview: an FSVP importer is the US owner or consignee of an imported food product. If there is no US owner or consignee, the importer is the US agency or representative of the foreign owner of a consignee at time of entry and by signed consent. And if you notice that agency is not capital, so that does not mean a federal agency. It's the company that's in the US. Additionally, FSVP requires a firm verify that their foreign suppliers are producing food in a manner that provides the same level of public health protection as the preventive controls or produce safety regulations, and to ensure that the supplier's food is not adulterated or misbranded with respect to allergen labeling. One of the major things that needs to be done during the FSVP is a hazard analysis. An importer is required to identify and evaluate the known or reasonably foreseeable hazards for each type of food it imports to determine if there are any hazards requiring a control. Some of these hazards that need to be evaluated and identified are biological hazards, such as parasites and disease-causing bacteria, chemical hazards, such as radiological hazards, pesticide and drug residues, natural toxins, food decomposition, etc. Physical hazards, such as metal, glass, and plastics, and unintentional adulteration, such as economic gain and substitution. They may be hazards reasonably likely to cause illness or injury that occur naturally or unintentionally introduced or are intentionally introduced for the purposes of economic gain, such as substitution of a less costly ingredient. In continuation for the hazard analysis, the analysis must assess the probability that the hazards will occur in the absence of controls and the severity of the illness or injury that could occur. An importer can rely on another entity to conduct the hazard analysis, so long as the importer reviews and assesses the relevant documentation. Because it's a new program, a lot of the importers may not know how to do this, so they can hire another company, such as the EAS and their consultants, to perform this analysis. Also in continuation, the evaluation would have to consider factors that include the following: condition, function, and design of the establishment and equipment of a typical entity that produces the food, harvesting, raising, manufacturing, processing, and packing procedures, including employee hygiene, transportation, storage, and distribution of the food products, intended or reasonably foreseeable use, raw materials and other ingredients, packaging and labeling activities, and also the formulation of the food. Now we're going on to the evaluation of food risk and supplier performance. The FSVP importer, under the FSVP FSMA's regulations, must evaluate the following: a foreign supplier's procedures, practices, and processes related to food safety. The entity, the FSV importer must also evaluate the entity that will be minimizing or preventing the hazards. Applicable FDA food safety information and regulations. Again, evaluate the factors such as transportation and storage, and even the food supplier's food safety history. Some manufacturers overseas may have had a history of being on the import alert. So that's another thing that that the FSVP importer must evaluate, and also the hazard analysis of the specific food. The next one is the supplier verification. The FSVP importer must establish and follow written procedures to ensure that it imports from an approved foreign supplier and conduct appropriate supplier verification activities, which are the hazard analysis, the entity that will be minimizing or preventing the hazards, a foreign supplier's procedures, practices, and processes related to food safety, applicable FDA food information and regulations, foreign suppliers, food safety history, and other factors, again, such as transportation and storage. Again, this is the supplier verification section of the FSVP program that's that you'll most likely be inspected with. In continuation for the supplier verification, the FSVP importer can tailor their supplier verification activities to unique food risks and supplier characteristics, such as annual on-site audits of the supplier's facility. Currently, it's not being enforced by the FDA. So if you choose annual on-site audits, right now it's not being enforced due to the pandemic. So there should be an alternative way that the supplier's facility is inspected. What's being discussed these days are video audits. Another one is sampling and testing, and a review of the supplier's food safety records. The FSVP importer can rely on another entity to determine and perform appropriate supplier verification activities, as long as the importer reviews and assesses the relevant documentation. Again, this is where the EAS consulting group can come in and assist. Another aspect of the FSVP is corrective actions. The FSVP importers must take corrective actions if a foreign supplier has not used processes and/or procedures that provide the the same level of public health protection required under the produce safety and PC regulations, the preventive control regulations. The corrective actions will depend on the issue, but it can include discontinuation of a foreign supplier until the issues have been resolved. So with the foreign supplier verification program, there are exemptions and modified standards. And for now, we'll speak briefly about dietary supplements. And the requirements for dietary supplements vary for the FSVP. And the difference is in whether or not the product is a finished product or an ingredient or component. Importers who establish and verify compliance with certain specifications, such as dietary supplement components and packaging, required under the dietary supplement GMP regulation, are not required to comply with most of the standard FSVP requirements. Importers whose customer is required to establish specifications and verify they are met, except that the importer must obtain written assurance that the customer complies with the requirements. Importers of other dietary supplements, including finished products, are required to comply with most of the standard FSVP requirements. And the exception is the hazard analysis requirement. But the verification activities would be in compliance. I'm sorry, there's a little typographical error there. It should be in compliance with dietary supplement regulations. Furthermore, for exemptions and modified standards, the modified FSVP requirements are established for very small importers and importers of food from certain small suppliers. For example, a small importer between 1 million, averaged over a 3-year period, less than $1 million for human food and 2.5 million for animal food. And I wanted to also quickly mention that dog chews are considered animal food. And there's been a few companies out there who've didn't realize that they were being they're regulated by FDA. In addition, importers of certain small foreign suppliers are subject to modified FSVP requirements. For example, farms, they're not covered under the produce safety rule because they average $25,000 or less in annual produce sales. And shell egg producers with fewer than 3,000 laying hens. Each of these types of producers is either exempt from their FDA food safety regulations or subject to modified requirements, mostly, and in some cases because of the size of the facility, or as in the shell egg, the chickens. Furthermore, with exemptions and modified standards, modified requirements for certain foods from a foreign supplier in a country whose food safety system recognized as comparable or determined to be equivalent of the US system. Not a lot of them qualify under that right now. I believe it's New Zealand and Canada. And lastly, imported food not covered by FSVP include the following: juice, fish, fishery products subject to which are subject to FDA's HACCP for research or evaluation, food for personal consumption, alcoholic beverages, food that is imported for processing and for future export. Low acid canned foods are not subject to FSVP, but it's actually for modified standards. That's only with respect to microbiological hazards. And also USDA products such as meat, poultry, and eggs. So we'll get to the FDA the FSVP countdown that you're here for, the interesting part of the warning letters and regulatory action. So I wanted to start off by saying that the data was gathered from the FDA's website. The information was gathered on 8/5/2021. And this is a list of warning letters by the FDA office. As you can see, there's a lot of ones there, but the Division of Northeast Imports, 23. Division of Northern Border Imports, 9. Division of Southeast Imports, 5. Southwest, 17. West Coast, 30. I wasn't sure if I should have organized it by alphabetical order or by numerical order. So West Coast imports looks pretty busy, but they're also very, very high volume, followed by Northeast and the Northern Border. I'm sorry, Southwest imports. So, and there since 2017, that's where the information started. Actually, 2019, if you according to this list, is to be technical. No warning letters issued in 17 or 18, but in 2019, 8 warning letters, 2020, 50 warning letters, and 2021, which is pretty much more than half the years gone by, it's 31 warning letters. And I'm sure there's some out there waiting to be issued. And it looks like FSVP inspections, because of the pandemic, are becoming a focus on FDA inspections, since they can be done remote. So I was able to do this for 2019, but I won't be doing it for 2020 and 2021 because I'll summarize it rather than identify. As you can see here, there's 8 warning letters, 50 and 31, but I was able to summarize these here. 5 firms have been issued a warning letter, and basically it was because they did not develop an FSVP plan at all for their products. Firm 1, I didn't want to give any names out, but it's public information on FDA's website, but I won't be doing that here. Rasam powder, coriander with garlic, and suji rusk. And I apologize if I mispronounce any of these foreign words. I'll do my best. The second firm, mayonnaise, tomato spice flavored drink, and punch flavored soft drink. The third firm, frozen baked egg, Atsuyaki tamago, and other products. Multicolor sprinkles, Bavarian cream, and strawberry filling for the fourth firm. Sesame paste tahini, which is the fifth firm. So with the variety of these products that are being inspected here, you can see it's a variety. So they're not focusing on one type of food. They're focusing on whether or not you have an FSVP plan or not. Basically, the warning letter was issued and found not to be in compliance with 21 CFR Part 1.502A. And that was for all these 5. The other 3 for warning letters were given for other reasons other than FSVP. So in 2020, 50 firms have been issued a warning letter. Sample commodities, again, it's a variety: potato chips, spiced chutney, vermicelli noodles, fried onions, basmati rice, sesame seeds, tahini, chickpeas, garbanzo beans, mango syrup, chili powder, cheese, tamarind, all favorites of mine. They're all being inspected. And 33 out of these 50 FSVP inspections were issued a warning letter based solely on not having an FSVP in place. 13 of these, and these numbers shouldn't add up to 50 because it describes each of the warning letters. Excuse me. 13 of the warning letters did not meet the requirement to conduct a hazard analysis as required by 21 CFR 1.504D. So they did have us have an FSVP, but it was done incorrectly because they did not have hazard analysis. The next item, supplier performance, they lacked that as part of their FSVP. There was no evaluation for their supplier performance, which is 1.505, or supplier verification 1.506, 18 of them. And 6 of them, they did have an FSVP, but they did not verify or document the food products were produced in accordance with LACF. If you recall in the previous slide, LACF products are under the modified exemptions for microbiological hazards. 2021, it's slowly catching up. 31 firms have been issued a warning letter. Again, a list of commodities: rice, beans, bottled water, pumpkin seeds, hazelnut spread, flavorings, dates, pine nuts, mushrooms, tea, coffee, bamboo leaves and bread mix. Again, a variety of products. And 21 out of 31 firms were based solely on not having an FSVP. And I made a note to myself that 9 of these 21 did have multiple issues with their FSVP. 5 of them did not meet the requirement to conduct a hazard analysis as required by 21 CFR 1.504D. 5 for the supplier performance, 6 for the supplier verification, and 1 for corrective actions. And again, 4 of them did not verify or document the food products were produced in accordance with 21 CFR 113. So this is the countdown. 21 CFR 113. This, just a second. So together there were 10 of them. 10 of them is, that's the 6th charge that they had. The firm did not verify, document the LACF food products were produced in accordance with 21 CFR 113. The 5th is the 21 CFR 1.508, corrective actions. This involves the firm's corrective actions to processes and procedures that do not assure that the food is not the same level of protection required under sections 418, 419, 402, and 403W. They did not document, have corrective actions, or any kind of procedures for these corrective actions. 21 CFR 1.506, foreign supplier verification procedures and activities. This involves written procedures for the approval, appropriate verification activities, such as on-site audits, sampling testing, review of safety records, and review of another entity's foreign supplier verification evaluation. So they did not have any kind of evaluation for their verification procedures. Normally in a face-to-face, I would probably ask everyone if they could guess what the top 3 are, but since we're doing this virtually, I'll just say it here. 21 CFR 1.505 is evaluation of a foreign supplier's performance and the risk posed by a food. This involves the firm's regulatory history, their approval, and the re-evaluation of the supplier and review of another entity's foreign supplier performance evaluation. One thing I wanted to point out here, the approval and the re-evaluation of the supplier. I didn't want to get into it in this presentation because this was focusing on the top violations, but just a reminder that the re-evaluation of an FSVP program should be done every 3 years or whenever there's a major change in their production, formulation, or even change in management in the facility. So the second place, 21 CFR 1.504D, the requirements for hazard analysis. You saw a lot of numbers for that. This involves the identification, evaluation, and review of another entity's hazard evaluation. And I wish I had a drum roll, but 21 CFR 502A, as you can guess, FSVP. Simply, the top violation seen in warning letters was that they did not have an FSVP at all. For each food you import, you must develop, maintain, and follow an FSVP that provides adequate assurances that your foreign supplier is producing the food in compliance with processes and procedures that provide at least the same level of public health protection required under 418, which is hazard analysis and risk-based preventive controls, 419, produce safety, 402, which is adulteration, and 403W, labeling and allergens. I also wanted to mention that there were warning letters in which they were issued with 502A along with the other violations. They pretty much went above and beyond what they actually needed to do, because if they don't have a proper FSVP, they could have just stopped at a 502A. But when the problem is that some of them are developing FSVPs that are incorrect. So that's where we can help your firm with your FSVP. Regulatory action. In my recent experience, actually very recent experience, I was told by an FDA inspector, currently the FDA is in an educate while we regulate mode when performing FSVP inspections. This was 2 months ago, so I don't know if that has changed. Let's cross our fingers that we're still in that mode. Warning letters typically state the following: you should take prompt action to correct the above violations. If you do not promptly correct them, we may take further action. For instance, we may take regulatory action under Section 801A3 and the FD&C Act 21 U.S. Code 381A3 to refuse admission. And of course, that leads to Import Alert 9941, which is the dreaded DWPE of human and animal foods imported from foreign suppliers by importers who were not in compliance with the requirements of the FSVP regulation. And these are the familiar charges that are associated with this Import Alert 9941. And again, the most of the charges, when I reviewed and analyzed the import alert, the most common one was 21 CFR 1.502A. Of course, as we all know, hopefully we all know that that the import alert is actually pretty much a living document. People go on and off a lot of the import alerts. Of course, there's some that remain on there until science states otherwise. But we can also help if you have an issue with import alert 9941. We can help you with that as well. This is just that previous bullet point restated, the related import alert violations. Again, 502A is the most common one. And I believe this will be sent to all the registrants. So I have a link to the FDA import alerts that can lead you directly to there in this slide. So I also wanted to mention the FDA policy during COVID-19 public health emergency. FDA will not enforce supplier verification requirements for on-site audits of FSVP. Other verification methods should be used. And here is the Code of Federal Regulations for human food, which is 117's. Apologize for that. That's FDA speak. 21 CFR 507, CGMP hazard analysis and risk-based PC for animal food, and 21 CFR 1 subpart L, which is specifically the foreign supplier verification for importers of food for human and animals. That's where the violations came from for the import alert and the warning letters. And additional details can be found at the following link. And if you're just viewing this presentation, it can easily be found on FDA's website. And that's my thank you.